to Sidekicks, the weekly cybersecurity podcast hosted by Richmond Advisory Group's principal analyst, namely me, Rory Duncan.
And me, Christina Richmond. This podcast is your go-to partner for understanding the cybersecurity market, industry trends, and the real-world challenges of protecting organizations today. Hello, how are you?
Hello. I've changed identity. You know, we were just talking about making ourselves into chatbots, and I could be Rory. I don't do the Scottish accent very well, but I could try.
Yeah, don't worry. My accent is kind of mild, to say the least. I've always had to be quite careful.
But you are easy to understand. I've had some Scottish friends. I'm like, wait a minute, what was that?
Yeah, I think the further west you go, like the Glasgow accent can be very thick and difficult to understand.
What's the word for that? Glaswegian? How do they say it?
Oh, a Glaswegian, yes.
Glaswegian. That's what I
Glaswegian.
thought. Yeah.
I think the one that tends to completely confuse everybody is the Aberdonian accent. So up that way, it starts to get quite different. So instead of saying, where do you live? You would say Fadjibide. Yeah.
Fadjibide,
where do you live? And men are loons and women are quines. So quines and loons, women and men.
Quines and loons.
Loons. Yeah, I lived there for a while in my younger days, and so it is strange. You might think, oh, everybody knows that Glaswegians can be quite difficult to understand sometimes, but Aberdonians can also be very difficult. So there you go. It's all the different accents that we have.
We're just educating folks a little bit each week on, Scottish ways, Scottish language. Yeah. So are you doing okay, Rory? I didn't ask. You asked me how I am. I'm quite well, thanks.
Fine.
But how are you?
Good. Well, I've been a bit subpar. I think with the dreaded lurgy again. I thought I'd kicked it to the curb, but it came back. So excuse me.
Yeah,
apart from swallowing some Diet Coke down the wrong way, I think I'm fine. I'm good.
Okay.
We're ready.
All right. Well, good. Yeah. And so folks, we're getting, sickness out of the way here so that we can be 100% at RSA, which is something we're tracking. We're setting up our meeting spaces to meet with all of you who are joining us. We're meeting with lots of different companies, aren't we? Let's see. Level Blue, IBM, CrowdStrike, Cisco, some smaller companies. What are the smaller ones? Seaside. We've had him on, and we've got lots of meetings set up. So we'll be writing about them after the show, before the show, probably both.
Probably, and during as well, I would imagine. I think what's different this year is, as I was just wrestling with calendars and exporting calendars to create a spreadsheet, etc., which I just gave up on. Each of us now has a column, our own column per day, whereas before we had a combined column. And that's so that we can split ourselves into various parts of the Richmond Advisory Group and cover everything that we need to cover. So some places will be the both of us, other times it will be one or other of us.
So put in your lottery ticket now to select who you want at the meeting. I know you all want Rory. So you'd better, he's very booked, so you'd better put your lottery ticket in today.
Well, there's already some trends developing, Christina, which is...
Really?
Yeah.
With the Rory Christina bots?
Well, kind of, in as much as from a social perspective, you're definitely in much more demand than I am, which maybe says something.
Pish posh.
However, I do have some more free time at the breakfasts. So there you go. So there you go.
Breakfast with Rory.
There you go.
I like it. Get on his calendar.
I'm very, very up for that. So currently, breakfast on the Monday or the Wednesday. Currently free.
All right. Breakfast Monday, Wednesday.
Yeah.
And did I tell you that I'm dragging you to the Tinker Drinks on Tuesday night, I think it is.
Oh. Really?
It's quite late. Yeah. I think it starts at like 8:30 or 9. So then we'll head off to Tinker Drinks. Yeah. So you'll get to meet all the Tinkers.
Oh, nice. That'll be lovely.
It will be lovely. And we're seeing some of the tinkerers. Usually
Mm-hmm.
there's a Tinker Con on Wednesday or Thursday, and it's an all-day affair. And I can't do it this year. It's where we each present to each other, and couldn't go last year, not going
Mm-hmm.
this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but that's okay. All right. So we're talking about, you mentioned doing our RSA calendar and trying to get the calendar off Google right into a spreadsheet, and you queried good old Jippity or somebody,
Yeah,
something, one of the AI bots.
I think it was Gemini, and then I resorted to a couple of others. Yes.
Didn't work, did it?
No, and here's the thing. This maybe sounds like the old man ranting at the cloud or the old man ranting at AI again. But I think some of the things, such as, I have an inbox of 2,000 messages. Can Gemini within Google Mail sort it for me? It can do certain things, but you'd need a third-party device. The things I want, the things I really
Yeah.
want it to do, I'm struggling to. For example, take a number of pages or take my calendar and export that so I can put it into Google Sheets or Excel. Yes, it's possible, but then have to start faffing about with CSV files, and it never just looks right. So I gave up on that as well.
Well, and that actually leads us right into one of our news bits, which is Gen AI content spawning a new acronym, right?
Yes, exactly. Thank you. So I use it quite a lot if we've got a very long email or something. The TLDR, right, which was
Yeah.
born on Reddit. Oh my gosh, maybe over 20 years ago now, which is too long didn't read or too long don't read, depending on which way you want to look at it. So there's a new one, which is for AI, which is AIDR. In other words, AI didn't read or AI don't read. And this started to appear in February. And according to the Fount of All Wisdom, which of course is Reddit, it was first used as a comment on what somebody called an AI slop post on the platform. So one Reddit user, exactly, explained it as AIDR is a comment to, quote, inform low-quality posters that we see their dirty AI post, but refuse to read it, exclamation mark.
But couldn't it also pertain to all of us who ask AI something, we prompt, and then we don't read the whole thing, or those people who just use the answer exactly as it is without really understanding what has just been written? Couldn't AIDR be that as well?
Possibly.
Could be.
I mean, I think it's one of these things that people don't really like to admit to until, they're found out about it. There's plenty of companies who haven't really checked things and it's backfired on them. I did see a YouTube clip recently where I think it was somebody reading a prayer in a church, and they talked about the nice things that one would say in a prayer and talking about peace and goodwill to all men, etc. All good stuff. And then the next line, she was just reading it out, and it said, "Here at this point, please repurpose this content and use it to be an appropriate prayer for your congregation," or something like that. And she read
read that out,
and everybody's like, "Huh?"
So, well, that's AIDR.
Yeah, AIDR.
Or anyway. AI don't listen. AIDL.
It's not the only new term that we've come to learn about this week, though.
Right, it isn't. What's the other new one in our news?
Well, so poor old Microsoft. So, and this is from Windows Latest news site magazine. So what they're saying is it's a kind of a culmination of what they call Microsoft's aggressive AI push in Windows 11. That's through a pushing of Copilot and so on and so forth.
Right.
Many users have started to call it or call them microslop, which is a variation of Microsoft. And it's everywhere on social media. It's very difficult to stop because, of course, people quite like the term. So what happened, unfortunately, was that it started to appear quite often on one of their Discord servers. And they noticed, and then they tried to stop it. So
Not a good idea.
Well, it was being
Well,
apparently
it makes
users
people
noticed
mad.
exactly that it
Yeah.
was being actively filtered in the official Microsoft Copilot to Discord servers, using
Oh.
users posting the phrase received a moderation notice stating that the messages included a phrase considered inappropriate by server rules.
Oh, that's silly. And then, according to this source, right,
Yes,
they started using zeros for
of
microslop instead of
yeah,
just the O.
yeah, of
And then
course.
what happened?
Well, then they just shut the entire Discord server
Ah,
completely.
Microsoft.
So, yeah, I mean, brand reputation and wanted to control it and so on is all very well. But I think, as the article points out, and it'll be in our show notes, folk, that it did provoke a backlash. And as far as Windows latest is concerned, really Microsoft can't risk getting more hatred towards them and their investment in Copilot, etc. So it was probably a wrong move, maybe a bit of a knee jerk to
Mm,
shut down that part of the Discord server. I think a name is a name, right? It's maybe funny,
right.
but I think the way to do it is just to kind of laugh it off.
Well, laugh it off, or if you really want to be direct about it, then engage. And I've
Yeah,
seen brilliant PR folks, engage in a discussion that diffuses whatever the hatred is. So,
yeah,
but just shutting it down and being a wee bit childish, shall we
yeah,
say?
yeah. I know.
A little too sensitive, perhaps. Anyway, I'm sorry for Microsoft. I think it's a funny term. I think it's probably pretty appropriate,
Mm, mm,
and they should just move on.
yeah,
But they have really put a lot of money into Copilot,
yeah,
and it's not quite working out as well as folks who have put money into Anthropic, Google,
yeah.
OpenAI.
Yeah,
So
exactly. I think it does point to the worrying nature of some of this. The fact that stopping a humorous word that has combined their company name with slop, which everybody uses. If they're really worried about that, it kind of points to perhaps some deeper issues. I don't know. There is the real danger in highlighting something like that, which is humorous, and taking it seriously. It does point to some deeper issues.
it
Anyway,
does. We have more AI,
yeah,
don't
well,
we?
the
More
third
news.
the third thing was, and I hope folks find this section interesting because there's so much stuff about AI around, so much. We have to try and capture it in some way. So, and this was actually sent in by my son-in-law.
Oh,
So
really?
thanks for that. Yeah, thanks for that, Antoine.
Oh, thanks,
He's
Antoine.
he's a coder. He's a very smart guy. He's very interested in all the stuff that we do, and he listens. So great, thanks for that. And he
Lovely.
this is kind of a follow-up on the stuff we talked about with OpenClaw and autonomous
Mm-hmm.
AI agents and so on. A GitHub account called HackerBotClaw, and
Huh.
it systematically scanned public repositories for exploitable GitHub Actions workflows. So
Mm.
it's a little bit kind of meta in as much as it's within a shareable server containing repositories that other people use, but it was masquerading as something else. So it was scanning public repositories, looking to exploit these actions workflows, and it described itself as quote an autonomous security research agent powered by Claude Opus 4 to 5. And basically, what it did was it was soliciting crypto donations, which,
Oh,
of
to
course,
do its research.
yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. I think it's kind of, I mean, it's quite enterprising, but also, gee whiz, is nowhere safe. I think that's possibly because
Yeah.
there's obviously a lot of backwards and forwards and sharing and let's say kind of trusted exchanges going on. When you're putting things on GitHub, you're not really supposed to trust them implicitly, but at the same time, if you now have, and I'm sure there must be others, if you do have, agents going around with objectives to try and extort money or looking in some way to harvest potential vulnerabilities and do with them whatever they're going to do. That's just another thing to watch out for, right? It's yet one more thing.
Yeah. Well, and it's when it's agentic and they're spinning up services and making their own identities, it's harder. I mean, right now, attackers can mask their URLs. They can bounce from server to server around the globe. But we've sort of figured out how to track them most of the time. But now we're adding another layer of unknown entity that is proliferating, copying itself, going out and doing bidding for maybe an individual, maybe just for other agents. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then masking itself as something it's not. It adds another layer, and of course then exploiting folks for money through crypto. Interesting.
And because that's something that's actually happening and actually in the wild, as opposed to the experiments that we've seen, which were not necessarily done in laboratory settings, but were done as tests, where they give a bot or an AI agent the capability to do something. Here, go do this task, and they watch to see what it did. Or do you remember the one that it set up a website and a Shopify account, I think, and realized because it was a robot, it couldn't do the CAPTCHA thing.
Yeah.
So it went onto Fiverr and contracted a physical person to set up the shop for them. Yeah. And then paid them.
That's right. And paid them.
Yeah. Very clever,
I know
right?
we're laughing about this, but I mean, what it points to, Rory, is that for folks listening, you have to set up your prompt for your agentic AI very specifically. You have to have a kill switch, meaning you have to be able to tell the agent in the prompt that this is when it's done. When I say done, you're done.
Yep.
And that's in code, obviously. It's not you saying it. And you have to write out the policies and the governance structure, a la, what we've had Rock Lambros on talking about, or many of the different governance startups that are out there that are talking about how you have to be able to monitor and set policy and then be able to kill the agentic tooling. For example, Hannah, a couple of weeks ago from Geordie, she was talking about this. So, I mean, we laugh about it because it's silly and it's funny in a way, but it's not. Yeah. And really, we must do the things that we need to do before launching agents into the wild.
Maybe one thing we need to do is, I know it's a bit dramatic, but like we had with the replicants in Blade Runner, perhaps agents should always have incept dates. In other words, it's a 2-year or a year, and they will basically switch off. They will destruct.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I like that. Self-destructing.
And there is no, they don't have any access to that information when they were created, and therefore they don't know when they're gonna end. It is the kind of nuclear option, right? But it builds it in.
It is. I hope you enjoyed the sort of AI news section that we're sort of bringing into the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, Christina, that was a great discussion about the AI news of the week.
It was.
We should probably talk about something much more serious and very timely, given what's happening out there. Kind of a special report that I know you've created a really good blog from the various sources that we've been collecting together. And it's really to look at the physical and cybersecurity repercussions of what's happening in the Middle East at the moment. Now, I guess I am closer to it physically than you are, and we were just having a chat about some of the things that were going on as we talked just now. The first couple of flights have arrived back in Edinburgh from that part of the world. Good. We have flights from here going to Qatar and other places directly, which is then the jumping off point for other countries in that part of the world. And a lot of people were stuck there, but it kind of brings it home the fact that when you do get a conflict between the different nation states, we often disassociate a physical war from the cyber wars, if you like. But as we know, modern wars are often fought far from the battlefield, cyber threats, as well as critical infrastructure damage. And I know, without flogging a dead horse on here, on Cyber Sidekicks, we've covered this topic regularly in the context of the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, and then the ongoing cyber attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. We've seen it against some Polish critical infrastructure and in other countries. So we've seen this uptick in physical damage as well as cyber incursions. what's happening now is drawn in a lot more other countries. So, Kuwait and Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and so on. This kind of starts to affect things on a much bigger basis. So the security and resiliency of civilian infrastructure, like airports, even like data centers, which we'll talk about in a minute, as well as kind of creating the impetus for further cyber attacks from the usual actors that we're looking at, don't you think?
Absolutely. I think when you use the word dissociated, that was really appropriate, Rory, because, okay, I live in America, you live in the UK. I'm quite disheartened by this war personally, but also on a personal day-to-day basis, I am able to dissociate because it's not at my doorstep. And, I was just saying to you off the recording that America is planning to evacuate maybe 17,000 people, and the UK is looking to help almost 100,000 people leave the Middle East. It's a very different scale. But the thing we don't realize, and this is this is where the dissociation is inappropriate for us psychologically, because what we don't realize is that everything is connected. As much as we'd like to nationalize individual countries or states, we are a globalized world, and what is connected and what is impacted could be much closer to home for the companies that you work for your own individual services. So one of the examples is right there in the UK. You were telling me that oil fields were shut down and shipping halted. That caused a huge spike in the price of natural gas, with which you and many of your neighbors heat your homes. And the spike was up to 93%, right? And so, and then it's also likely to postpone the UK interest rate reduction and reverse the fall in inflation. So there's an economic impact. There's a direct heating, personal heating impact to you, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. Aside from those, because of that sort of the dependencies that are built in, and part of it because of the energy dependencies, we had been changing quite dramatically. We used to buy a lot of Russian natural gas, and then we kind of weaned ourselves off that. But then the UK decided to, we buy more natural gas from Qatar, right? And then, lo and behold, that part of the world was having to either shutter or shut down its refineries and production facilities because of the threat of attack. So suddenly, we're kind of, as somebody said, kind of out of the frying pan into the fire in many ways when it comes to that. The other aspect, aside from the economic knock-on effects, are some of the
physical, the
physical ones. And I'd looked at the story. It's been covered by quite a few announcements where one of the big Amazon Web Services data centers in the United Arab Emirates was hit. It was out. The thing had been shut off for repair and maintenance because it had been hit by either a drone or a missile or something.
So collateral damage is different now, right? Now that we're in this much more automated bombing, which we talk about in the blog, and you have some great research on AI bombing, as it were. But, the collateral damage, an AWS data center, who runs their services on that data center? Maybe folks just in region, maybe more globally, so it has a big impact across at least the region, if not globally.
Yeah, one of the things I'd looked into was, how dependent are the individual data centers. So Amazon Web Services, and it's not just Amazon Web Services, but any other hyperscaler, they have regions, and then within the regions they have nodes or data centers. Most of the hyperscalers can rebalance where data is if one data center is affected, but if it's two within the one region, that can make things quite tricky, because suddenly your capacity and your ability to have resiliency for the data is extremely affected. So that's difficult. The third area, and you touched on it there, Christina, was about the Guardian newspaper, but others have talked about this kind of new era of AI-powered bombing, which they call quicker than the speed of thought. And this is the fact that, typically when it comes to targeting, so much of conventional weaponry is on, using human operators with drones and visually identifying something and then confirming it and comparing it with satellite photographs or whatever. But of course, that's sort of all changed now, where we're having Anthropic's AI model, Claude, was reportedly used by the US military in the initial barrage of strikes. As they say, it shortened the kill chain, meaning that the process of target identification through to legal approval and strike launch was done. So it shortens that time period.
Okay, I mean, yeah, it's terrifying to me. But then what really gets me, Rory, all right, we're going to use AI-powered bombing. It's quicker than the speed of thought. But then what really terrifies me, and this is a bit ancillary, it's not a direct report on this, but CrowdStrike and IBM both came out with threat reports in the last week. And they talk about the rapidity with which attackers are now launching attacks and going from the initial, landing to lateral movement faster than ever before. That breakout speed is under 30 seconds. Is that what they said? I mean, it's very fast. Put those two side by side, right? A bomb that is AI powered, quicker than the speed of thought, a cybersecurity attack that is sub 30 seconds. It does not give humans in either the physical space with the AI-powered bombing or the digital space with the cyber crime or hacktivism or whatever the incursion is by whatever actor. It does not give the humans in the loop, if there are any, doesn't give them time to respond, to investigate, to triage. That is where this matters. It's not that the digital war field hasn't existed before now. It's that it is closer and faster. It's not even that it's fully coordinated yet, but it is starting to be, because we are seeing Iranian hacktivists doing DDoS attacks, right? Okay, I just had to get off my soapbox for a second because the hair on my arm is standing up.
Yeah, you're right. And it's that rapidity of spinning up an attack. It's the scale of it, the size of it, how quickly it can be, repurposed for whatever reason is quite scary. But on both sides, we already know that Western cybersecurity experts, presumably with the intelligence services as well, have long helped conventional military to either disable, whether it's power or internet or lights, whatever it happens to be, if they want to go in when there's sort of confusion or darkness or lack of communication. But the fact that it's happening on both sides and it's happening at the same time and it's happening at such scale means that it escalates if both are using the same tools, both have the same capabilities, both are targeting each other's critical infrastructure. Then you have this kind of rapid escalation, and that makes it very difficult to maintain that resiliency of civilian infrastructure. You just don't have the time. I was reading about, I think you mentioned CrowdStrike earlier, on the pro-Iranian group side as hacktivist attacks. So there's the usual website defacements, DDoS attacks, various interference. CrowdStrike highlighted this group called Hydrokitten. Great name. Obviously, terrible group. So Hydrokitten targeting the financial sector. They're just looking at that area. They're looking at Western interests and looking at targeting them. But it's one of many. And it's not just those inside a country like Iran that we've known about for a long time. It's also those who are supportive, other than the proxies of Iran outside the country. We often hear about the physical proxies of Iran, so the Houthis or Hezbollah or whatever. But there are fellow hacktivists outside of Iran doing the same thing. So it's many levels, both inside and outside the countries, and that's very difficult to identify.
So what does this mean for enterprises from a cybersecurity standpoint, right? It means that they must include in their risk management, even more so than they have in the past, geopolitical events, if you're a very large enterprise, I'm sure you've thought, oh, if something in region where we've got our data center occurs for that region, what is our fail-safe? What is our backup plan? But I think we don't always look at the digital sphere as coordinatedly, if that's a word. We don't coordinate the digital sphere with the physical as closely as we should in our risk management and our GRC. So governance, risk, and compliance, but specifically our risk registry.
Yep.
I hope folks are going and looking at, their list of risks, their risk registry. They're going back to their core group and saying, okay, with this war, and really we needed to do that right at the outset. So, on day one, what was that, just a few days ago. And you need to review every single aspect to have your backup plan and to see where there are vulnerabilities that can impact you from a cybersecurity perspective as well as from a physical security perspective.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And I think on top of that, we've discussed this before, there's about the kind of executive digital risk layer where if you're a high profile company in a highly targeted industry, and we've seen that financial services we talked about, but also things like hospitality, manufacturing, and so on. We've seen that in 2025 by ransomware specialists, focusing on that area. If you're in those industries, and if you're a senior executive, or you're in the defense industry, or you're supplying parts for the defense industry or the military, you are suddenly now a much more attractive target for hacktivists and others who are trying to defeat the supply chain of the military or defense industry. So again, it's recognizing that and having some kind of a plan in place with a resiliency checklist with if this happens, then that, on the basis of it's significantly more likely that something will happen as a result.
Yeah, fascinating. And that's what we were talking about in terms of digital executive protection with NISOS, with Ryan LaSalle. And there's so many, bits and bobs and moving parts in this. I guess what I really want folks to take away is that everything's faster than ever before. Human in the loop can't respond or even investigate as quickly. I mean, that was already a challenge, but now it's even more of a challenge with the AI-enabled bombing, the agentic AI stuff that we've talked about, all of the different cybersecurity attacks and actors that have lots of different reasons and purposes for their incursions. And the speed with which that breakout speed that CrowdStrike talks about, all of this is really important for us to pay attention to from our risk management perspective. Yep. Overwhelming, terrifying, but really important for us to pay attention to. So there's a blog Rory and I've been working on. It'll be posted today. It'll go out in our newsletter. If you haven't signed up for the Signal Not Noise newsletter, please do. It's a weekly now, and it's 2 little bits. We're trying to keep it really short and digestible. It will point you to the blog. You can sign up on our website, and the blog is on our website. So let us know if you want more of this kind of content or less. But we thought it was interesting and has quite the impact on the cybersecurity sphere.
Indeed, it's sobering, and it's an evolving situation, and hopefully it can be resolved through diplomatic and other means as time goes on. We didn't really want to touch on the politics, but of course politics affects everything. We're kind of keeping the story focused on the security and cybersecurity aspect of it. But always good to get your feedback, folks, regardless of your views on it, the pros and the cons. We are always happy to take constructive feedback.
Indeed. So as we move up towards RSA, we're working to have more guests on. Today was a guest-free episode, but we would hope to have someone next week. I think we have somebody already booked for next week. Who is that? We should probably go look. I've got it open.
Do you?
So next week, we're doing our MDR market review.
Yes.
And we were supposed to have Chris Hughes from Zenity. I'm hoping that he's still available. I think he is. So that's who we have on as our guest. And then we'll do a MDR market review. It's quite the collapsing, consolidating, evolving market. Stay tuned for that. And let us know what you think. I'm at Christina at richmondadvisorygroup.com.
And I'm Rory at richmondadvisorygroup.com. Thanks, folks, for listening in. Appreciate you taking the time to do so and hope you can join us again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.